You know, usually when we look at a printed page, we just see the words. It's like clean, uniform, you open a book, and the letters march politely across the page in these neat little rows.
Yeah, it feels completely standardized, almost as if it was always meant to be exactly this way. But, well, the reality is far more chaotic.
Which is exactly why we are diving into a massive stack of sources today. We're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating presentation titled English Alphabet Origins, along with some of our own linguistic research notes.
And our mission today is to explore how the English language morphed from, carved runes
Yeah.
to the modern Latin alphabet you are so used to seeing.
Right, and how linguists actually trace a word's historical journey through all that mess. Okay, let's unpack this. If we go back to the 5th to 8th century early English communities, they weren't using the ABCs.
No, not at all. They employed a runic inventory known as the futhorc. These were rigid, angular characters specifically designed to be scratched into hard surfaces.
And to understand how modern English words evolve, we first have to understand the literal letters that built them. These futhorc runes were carved into wood or stone, mostly for local grave markers and memorials.
Exactly. They were highly localized.
It makes me wonder, were these limited, highly durable runes essentially the ancient equivalent of brief tweets, especially when you compare them to the long-form capabilities of what came later?
I love that. What's fascinating here is that form entirely followed function. I mean, you can't easily carve a massive, nuanced legal document into a rock. The runic system was perfectly suited to short, durable messages.
Right, your arm would get pretty tired.
For sure. But the technology shifted radically around 597 AD when Christian missionaries, led by Augustine, arrived. They brought monasteries, ink, parchment, and the Latin alphabet.
Oh, so suddenly you have a completely different medium. You aren't hacking away at stone, you're writing on flexible parchment.
And that new medium fostered a formal bookhand tradition. Scribes could now produce extensive literary works and systematic legal records.
Which allowed for broader administrative coordination across whole communities.
But wait, I have a question about that.
Sure, what's up?
Latin was designed for a Romance language. It simply lacked the letters for certain Old English sounds, like the dith sound in thought. How did they write those down?
Well, they didn't just ignore the sounds, they essentially hacked the alphabet. Scribes created a brilliant hybrid system by adopting unique characters directly from the old runes.
Wait, really? Like which ones?
Well, like thorn, which looks like a P and a B combined, or creating new ones like ash. You can see this beautifully captured in surviving texts like the Lindisfarne Gospels, which pair Latin script with Old English glosses.
Oh, so the church provided the alphabet, but the local spoken sounds demanded adaptation.
Precisely.
And once that Latin script became the standard, the English vocabulary itself underwent radical renovations. Old English, spanning roughly 450 to 1150 AD, was mainly Germanic with those lingering runic traces.
Yeah, you see this in epics like Beowulf. Right. But jump to Middle and Early Modern English, roughly 1150 to 1700, and you have the Norman French invasions, printing standardizing spelling, and the complex poetry of Shakespeare. Here's where it gets really interesting. How do linguists actually map this chaos?
Well, they use a specific four-step word history method. But instead of just listing the steps, let's actually run a word through the machine. Take the word night, K-N-I-G-H-T.
Okay, let's do it. Step 1 is finding the earliest attestation period, basically pinpointing when a word first shows up in written records.
Exactly. Do you want to take a guess on its origin?
I mean, I associate knights with chivalry in the Norman conquest, so maybe it's a French borrowing.
A very common guess, but no. When linguists hunt down the earliest text for night, they find it way back in Old English, spelled C-night, C-N-I-H-T,
Oh, wow.
which naturally leads to step 2, identifying source borrowings. It turns out the word is purely Germanic, not French at all.
So King Arthur's noble knights are using a Germanic word.
Yes, but this triggers step 4 of the method documenting semantic shifts. By looking at those early historical citations, linguists can prove that back then, Snight didn't mean an armored warrior on a horse.
Wait, really? What did it mean?
It simply meant boy or servant. The meaning completely evolved as military structures changed over centuries.
That is crazy. Okay, that covers steps 1, 2, and then 4, but what about step 3? Charting the sound changes. Because nobody today pronounces the K or that harsh H in night. We just say night.
That is where linguists map out major phonological rules. Over centuries, English speakers got efficient. The hard K at the start went silent, and the harsh, throat-clearing H dropped out entirely.
Right, we tend to get a bit lazy with pronunciation over time.
Exactly. Plus, you had phenomena like the Great Vowel Shift around the 1400s, where speakers physically moved where they pronounced vowels in their mouths. The long E sound shifted into an I sound.
Wow.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, language functions as a dynamic, ever-evolving archive.
So, what does this all mean? It means the words you read today are layered artifacts. They contain the ghosts of ancient inscriptions, monastic scriptoria, and centuries of cultural collisions.
Every single sentence is a museum of human history, hidden in plain sight.
The next time you type out a quick message, look closely at your keyboard and ask yourself which of those letters are ancient Roman imports and which sounds are the lingering echoes of lost Germanic tribes. Follow the Curiosity Mavericks for more informational topics.